Welcome to Focus on B, the video series where I spent about 20 or so minutes playing and talking about a game that I've got some thoughts on, and this is the ever so infamous Need for Speed Undercover, although I'm not sure how infamous it is today considering, well, the weird resurgence in most recent entries, believe it or not. Well, obviously Heat got good reviews, and Unbound isn't doing too badly, although for some reason Payback has actually been doing the rounds. Like seriously, if you go on Steam, anyway, it doesn't matter, I'm getting sidetracked already. This is actually going to be a double episode, sort of. I mean, it's going to be the same length. What I mean is I'm going to be looking at this version of the game, which is the PC version, of course, and the Wii version, because it is very different, and it has a lot of things that I want to talk about. So, I like this game. There, I said it. I really enjoy Need for Speed Undercover, actually. Why is that? Is it because I'm a Need for Speed fanboy? Well, you know what? I'm a huge fan of the series, but I can honestly count the number of games in the series that I play often, so to speak, more than once every few months or even once every few years on one hand. Really, I don't play that many Need for Speed games. Like, I play a wide variety of racing games, but of Need for Speed, yes, I like a lot of them, but I can't say I actively play that many of them due to some quality that they might have. For example, Most Wanted is legendary, but I haven't played it in quite some time because I guess I've overplayed that one. Carbon, it's awesome too. I really like Carbon, but I think it gets a little bit dull for me personally. Underground 1 and 2 are really fun as well, but they also get repetitive. For some reason though, Undercover, I always come back to this game, or at least more often, and there's a couple reasons as to why. So the first one is the most obvious one, and that is the car handling. So the car handling in Undercover is really weird because it has some elements of realism. They've implemented this thing called the heroic driving engine. So you can do these 180s and these J-turns, and there's this suspension system, right? And it's very physics driven. In fact, I think you can actually go into here, driver skills. No, it's not this. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it. Hints and tips. Heroic driving. There. There's all of these different little nuances as to the driving mechanics, which you don't ever have to really think about when you're playing the game, but it's cool that they listed them there. And I remember even seeing this video on YouTube from years ago, one of the developers actually showcasing the heroic driving engine. And it actually looks really cool because you can do a lot of things that, for example, did you know that if you double tap the brake, you instantly go to reverse? That's pretty sick. I don't know. Stuff like that, right? I actually really enjoy the way the game handles. It's a very nice balance between being accessible arcade while also having some nice weight to it. And there's something else. And this is technically a flaw. I'm going to be shifting like complete garbage here. I'm sorry. I'm playing in manual. It's technically a flaw, but I really enjoy the way it works in the game. It's this right here. Oh, shit. Okay, it didn't work. But what it's supposed to be is... Okay, let's see if I can pull it off this time. There, okay, you notice what's happening? When I use nitrous, my car actually gets grippier, right? So it makes the physics even less realistic. But I find that really fun. I think it's really enjoyable to just zip around corners super quickly using nitrous. Does that make sense? Well, no. But is it fun? It's actually really fun. Although, there is one thing, I think that the speed breaker, which was a feature from Most Wanted in Carbon, is not quite as... I don't think it's as useful here as it usually is in the series. Maybe I just don't have a good enough habit of using it, but I almost forget that it's in the game. Here it is. It applies this hyper freaking contrasty filter to the game and slows the game down a little bit, and I think it's supposed to make your car a little heavier. It's useful for pursuits, but I don't use it super often. I'm not sure why exactly. Also, you notice that thing on the bottom of my screen where it says press tab to, East Stadium, Cop Takeout. That's another thing I like about this game that I want to talk about, specifically about this version, although it partially carries over to the Wii version as well. It's the game's structure in the campaign. It's very open-ended, but guided at the same time. So you don't have any bounties. You don't have to get a certain amount of bounty or a certain amount of money or whatever it might be. You're kind of just going along for the ride, but you still have to win races, of course, and complete jobs. And what I like is you can just kind of drive around and just hit tab, right? And you instantly go, okay, I want to do this event now. And there you go. Now you're doing the event. And you're smoothly, and with a relatively short loading time on a modern computer, you're just smoothly thrown into the event, and now it's like, oh, get 15k cost estate. Am I actually going to do that? Well, I'm not sure how long that's going to take, because in about 5 minutes I got to switch over to the next game. The other version of this game, of course. As for the pursuits, which are a staple of not just this era of Need for Speed, they're a staple of Need for Speed, right? Ever since, actually, if you think about it, ever since Need for Speed Free, Hot Pursuit, or even since the first game, come to think of it, because again, the first game, the very first version, the 3DO version, had cops. Funnily enough, in this event, I don't want to escape the cops too quickly. I gotta rack up a cost estate. So crash into shit to get it to 15k. But anyway, I think the pursuits in this game are pretty standard. The driving model definitely makes them more fun just by default, although they're nowhere near as intense as the ones from Most Wanted. I think they're actually more fun than the ones in Carbon, because I believe the map lends itself better. I love this game's map. The way it looks, even with all the piss filteriness, even though I can disable it, there are mods to turn it off, and even then I can just go into the world effects setting and turn it off, but I don't know, I feel like I don't mind this aesthetic, this just super late 2000s orange and blue aesthetic. I think it's kind of appealing in a way. But the actual pursuits, they're really fun because of the size of the map, right? Not only is it a huge map, well, okay, I'm sure it's not that big by modern standards of what a game map typically is like. You know how, like, for example, GTA San Andreas' map, it feels huge, but in reality it's all an illusion and it's actually not that big at all. I'm sure this is the same thing. If you zoom that out with like some kind of engine tool, it's really not that big of a map, but hey, I always feel like there's something new to look at, and it's very well laid out, and it flows. Every single section of the map flows super well into the next one, and that's what I like about it. You know, it's not the prettiest map that they've had in a Need for Speed game, not by a long shot, and it's not the most complicated, but I like how it's also fully fleshed out and utilized. For example, Need for Speed Payback had this issue where it had this decent city area, but it was barely used. Or at least, it barely had any races. Look at this, I can just do another event just like that. It barely had any race events, which is what you really want to play the game for. It had a bunch of Jess's missions, but I don't find those very fun. But here, every single inch of the map is used for every single kind of event. So you go over here, and there you go, I can zoom out and just find, okay, what do I want to do? I don't know, this thing, an outrun. Sure, I think the outrun events are really cool too, because it's like you're carving the path as you're driving if you're in the lead, otherwise you're following. They're really dynamic. They can drag on for a little while, but I think they're a really great concept. As for the highway battles, well, they were kind of inevitable, like that a Need for Speed game was going to have that kind of thing going on, where you're on a highway, you're just kind of going really fast. And the interesting thing about the highway battles, they're kind of similar to the drag events, because even though this game has no car damage, well, it has visual damage, but it doesn't really have any. The cops, I don't even think they can pop your tires in this one. At least I don't remember it ever happening to me, even though I've played this game a lot more than anyone really should. The highway battles, they could actually, you can die during them. Well, not die, but you can get totaled, which I find to be an interesting change compared to how, you know, usually a Need for Speed game would handle things. But so it's similar to the drag events, because they let you get totaled as well, which is kind of like how they got to do their difficulty that way, because otherwise it'd be too easy, I imagine. Although the controls are much better than they would be in a drag event, because you're just kind of racing normally. And also like how when you do a highway battle, your camera defaults to this one, which, holy shit, look at the sense of speed. Like, a lot of people claim this game has a very bad sense of speed, and you know what? I almost have to agree. When you're using the regular exterior camera, it's not sensational. But when you do this, like that, it's like, look at this, it's like Ridge Racer. Oh my god, it's faster than Ridge Racer. What the fuck just happened? Another thing I gotta talk about before I move on to the next version of this game is the nitrous system. So you probably noticed that whenever I use my boost, it becomes transparent for a little while. That's because there's a bit of a, oh my god, look at my car. That's because there's a bit of a limit to it. So basically, whenever I use nitrous, I can't use it again for a few seconds. There's a cooldown. On one hand, I think this mechanic definitely adds some strategy to it. You can't just use it whenever you want. You gotta time it. But I don't think it was fully necessary, but it's a cool little element that doesn't really appear too often in Need for Speed games. They'll either just do a burst nitrous or a regular one, but there won't be like this weird in-between. I don't know. I really like this game, okay? And this particular version, I actually prefer it. Although there are some reasons as to why I imagine some people might prefer the Wii version, or the PS2 version as well, but typically the Wii version is a little bit better because widescreen and slightly better visuals. So anyway, let's go ahead and switch over to that version and see how it differs. This is the Wii version of Need for Speed Most Wanted. I mean, can you blame me? Look at it. Yeah, this was one of the main critiques, or I'd say just general points of contention of Need for Speed Undercover's alternative version. That is the fact that the map, as you can clearly tell, is not the same one as on the HD version, so to speak, even though as far as you guys are concerned, this is also in HD right now. But yeah, they've lifted a lot of the map sections from Need for Speed Most Wanted, and I think there's some elements from Carbon, though I think it's mostly Most Wanted. I mean, look at this part. This bit is so obviously Most Wanted, it's not even funny. Except that wall is a little bit different. And you know what the weird thing is? That it only really happens upon closer inspection, because when I first played this version, it didn't really dawn on me that this was in fact the same map. In fact, I remember playing the PS2 version at okay, so you remember back in the, I think some stores probably still do this, but my parents used to take me to like Technopolis or whatever, just these different tech places, and they would have games showcasing, and because it was the mid to late 2000s, they had some Need for Speed games, and one of them was Need for Speed Undercover on the PS2. It was the PS2 version of this game. Oh my god. Okay, I'm not gonna wait. Actually, can I keep up with this guy? I'm playing this on hard mode, so there's a good chance I might just not be able to keep up. But it was the PS2 version, and I didn't really notice. Like, I'm pretty sure at that point I had played Most Wanted. Although, to be fair, that was also a very different version of the map. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do about this. I mean, I've already completed this game. I have a complete save file. It's just that, whoa, look at that thing. Let's go ahead in the options menu and turn it down to normal. Or medium difficulty, I guess, because apparently hard is too freaking hard. Oh, yes, saving. Yes, thank you very much. Come on, there you go. Let's switch over. Let's do something else. Outrun? Sure, let's do an outrun event. Why not? So, let's check that out. I find it interesting that even though this is on the Wii, therefore you would assume it's targeting a younger demographic, it has these very sultry loading screens. I mean, don't mind if I do, man. Anyway, this was that era of Need for Speed after all. The tail end of it, but still. Oh, okay, this is so much easier. Am I driving Mia's car? Speaking of fan service, am I driving Mia's car right now? This looks very similar. Like it's the same paint job and everything, and the same design. I mean, I can't really. No, it's not. It's not Mia's car from Need for Speed Most Wanted. But speaking of Most Wanted, look at the handling. So the driving model that they've used for this version of Undercover seems to be this very strangely modified version of the Carbon/Most Wanted handling model. And I don't mind. I can totally imagine some people even thinking that this is better than the PC/the other systems version handling, because it does have that more classic Need for Speed feel to it. It's a little bit heavier, I find. And one thing this game definitely gets done, does a lot better, is the sense of speed. Even using the third-person camera, check out what happens when I hit the nitrous. I mean, Jesus, they got that from Need for Speed Pro Street, that's for sure, because Pro Street had an absolutely impeccable sense of speed. The way the camera would zoom and the FOV would just go crazy. Like, they absolutely... Black Box, they fucking knew what they were doing. I'm pretty sure Black Box also made this version. As for the game modes, they seem to be almost identical. Like, this is just the same kind of outrun mode. Although, actually, winning via an outrun in of itself, as in getting far enough from the opponent, seems to almost be impossible. You're just going to have to survive, basically, driving around the map. But it does help that Most Wanted's map lends itself very well to these kind of game modes, to be fair. The graphical hit is also not quite as substantial as you would probably expect it to be for a game that is, well, late into the PS2's lifespan, relatively early into the Wii's lifespan, however. I don't think this looks quite as good as Need for Speed Pro Street on the Wii, but to be fair, Pro Street, that's another good one. Pro Street is a closed track racing game, right? It's generally easier to make those ones look better because there's less things to optimize when it comes to the engine, whereas here it's open world. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if they're genuinely using like a modified version of the Wii version of Carbon's engine or something like that. Whatever the case may be, though, I really like this version of the game too. I've completed it twice. The campaign is obviously, it feels very different, even though it retains a lot of the same story beats, because they are trying to recreate the exact same experience. A lot of the cutscenes don't make as much sense because I'm pretty sure they use a lot of the same cinematics from the PC game, which have pre-rendered versions of the environments from that game, which obviously are not the same as these ones, but I can't really say that bothers me too much. I mean, it is quite a continuity oversight. It's like, what the fuck, where are we now? We're in a totally different part of the world, but I don't know. Game's still pretty fun. Like, I think the driving just makes it enjoyable regardless of the design, or some of the missions are actually kind of cool. There's nothing too unique about them, but you know, you have your time challenges, your cop stuff, delivering vehicles. I don't know, I find that this is a very interesting example of an obvious rush job. Like, I mean, yeah, both versions are rushed to shit. I mean, the Need for Speed was infamous for crunch at this point in its lifespan. Not so much anymore. They've been taking their sweet-ass time with the games. But, you know, if it means that if they're gonna continue to climb in quality, well, I don't know, is Unbound good? I know it's not a bad game in any way. I think it generally has positive reviews, but I don't know, I've seen some mixed opinions on it, actually, from different people, but I find that Heat was definitely a larger step forward. Like, Heat received very positive reviews, at least generally speaking, right? Everyone was talking about how good it is, but that's probably because Payback in 2015 did not receive incredibly good scores. I personally am a little bit partial to Payback, I'm not gonna lie. I've completed that game a few too many times. I think it does a really good job holding my interest. I've completed it more times than I have Most Wanted. I still like Most Wanted better, of course, but in terms of the progression and career mode, I think Payback does a slightly better job at holding my interest because of the variety of of the game types, the different car types that you have, you know, drift and off-road and all that. And the characters are, I mean, I'm not going to say that the writing is all that good. I kind of like the Gambler. I think he's a really fun character. He's also very well voice acted. But aside from that, it's just, I don't know, it's a fun romp. It's a fun action flick movie thing. And it's like the video game equivalent of the Fast and Furious, sort of, except I like it better. I've never really been that big of a fan of the movies. I mean, I think culturally and aesthetically they're kind of cool, especially like early on. But then they got a little bit too spy thing. It's kind of like, you know how with Top Gear, it's not actually a car show. It's just free idiots doing stupid shit with cars. But like, it's really funny because Jeremy Clarkson and the boys, they just have like the best chemistry ever. Well, Fast and Furious kind of tried to do that, but I'm not sure if I really enjoy it that much. I don't know, I've only seen a few of the movies. Doesn't matter. Gas station. Okay, they've kept the pursuit breakers. Oh, what the fuck? What just happened? I just smashed myself into that, and yet no damage has been. Actually, how do I look back? I don't know what the button. Okay, that's the speed breaker. Now it's Most Wanted. What's the look back button? I don't want to accidentally stop the recording. Which one is it? It's not this one. Okay, I don't think there is a look back button. Maybe it's with the D-pad. I have no idea, but we're still recording, so that's good. Where was I? The plot. Yeah. So, I think the reason why I've stuck around with Undercover's campaign on both versions, although especially the PC version, you know, the 7th gen version, is primarily again because of that tab button thing. I forgot if this version does that. Let me go check. Let's go and find out together. Let's find out if this version of the game actually has go career. Resume career. Do we have that same tab thing? But it's not going to be tab, of course. It's going to be a different button. Nice. But can we just load up an event from the hub world? Does that happen in this version? No, it doesn't. You actually have to physically... what is this? 2005 and 6? You actually have to physically drive over to the location and activate it. Well, I don't know. It's not the end of the world, though. you know, the map looks, weirdly enough, a little more alive than it does on PC. Even though it's not as detailed, it looks more populated. I don't know, like right now I'm getting the impression of a much livelier city. There's definitely a lot more traffic vehicles. That is so odd. I don't know. They've done a good enough job repurposing the assets, because this is obviously Most Wanted's map, but I don't mind too much. Anyway, as for the rest of the game, I mean, should I even talk about the soundtrack? You know, I noticed that a lot of people really like Undercover soundtrack. And I'm not gonna lie, there's not that many songs that I like. I'm not really a huge fan of popular music from the late 2000s. There's this one pretty cool metalcore track by From First to Last that was after they turned metalcore from post-hardcore, back when they had freaking Skrillex in the band. I'm not even kidding, that he used to be their singer. There's a bit of Mindless Self-Indulgence, but like a really shitty remix instead of like the actual song of Never Wanted to Dance With Nobody But You, that one. What else? There's The Prodigy on there. There's 9 Inch Nails on there, which is pretty cool. But I can't really say it's my favorite soundtrack. I definitely prefer Pro Street. In fact, well, no. I think Carbon's licensed score is probably my least favorite of the licensed scores of any Need for Speed game, apart from like Heat and Unbound, of course. Hey, we want some money, you know, like that. Yeah, no one wants to listen to that. But anyway, but yeah, I'm not really the biggest fan of Carbon's licensed score, although it does have a song that features lyrics in my native language, which was like the fucking weirdest thing. I was playing the game and I was like, wait, hold on, I understand this natively. I'm not putting it through the English filter. Like, what the hell is this? Is this Russian? Oh, no, oh my god. I did some research. Turns out they're an English band, but they're singers from here, and I was just like, oh my god, it's amazing. We had our words in a big popular video game at the time. That's pretty sick. Then I found out it's actually not that uncommon. I mean, I literally have a friend whose friend does the music for Assassin's Creed. That sounds kind of sketchy, but it's literally true because I study music, so it's not actually that improbable. Anyway, what else? Where are we? I mean, like, yeah, other than that, though, the cinematic score for, like, the actual composed score for Carbon is phenomenal, however. I gotta do a video on that separately. Anyway, that's pretty much gonna do it for Need for Speed Undercover. I like this game more than the law allows one person to do so. I'm over my permitted enjoyment of video game limit as of right now, but hey, you can't put me in jail for that, or maybe you can. I don't know. Donk. Okay, so that's gonna do it for this episode of Focus on B, the video series where I spent about 20 or so minutes playing and talking about a game that I've definitely got some thoughts on. This has been Need for Speed Undercover, practically everything 2008.